Christopher Columbus set foot on Hispaniola, it did not mark the discovery of a new world called America. It marked the creation of the new globalized world in which we live today. Ecosystems that had been separate for millions of years met and mixed in what has been described as the Columbian Exchange. This exchange brought tomatoes from Central America to the rest of the world, maize from Mexico to China, potatoes from the Andes to Europe, apples from Europe to America, coffee from Ethiopia to Latin America, soybeans from China to the Americas, and ultimately developed into the global trade system of food as we know it today. A system that not only has enriched our daily meals, but that has also the potential to feed the world. Food cannot always be grown in the areas where it is consumed, but what is needed before we can enjoy our daily cup of coffee, before we can feed our cattle, before we can cook our evening meal? What are, in other words, the economics of food in a system that is robust and vulnerable at the same time? As a matter of fact, there is climate and soil, and the weather. There are the laws of supply and demand. Obviously, price and quality are essential, but there are other factors that play a part. Take, for instance, the political situation. What if tensions arise? If trade routes become unsafe, borders are closed, tariff walls are created, or if large investors decide to shift part of their portfolio to a small commodity and totally disrupt the market. Let's have a look into some of the commodities we can't do without. Coffee. Almost 2 billion cups of coffee perk up its drinkers every day, a growth of 40% in the last decade. Coffee is one of the most valuable agricultural commodities in the world. Exports totaled around $30 billion in 2016, and around 125 million people worldwide depend on coffee for their livelihoods. Despite these impressive figures, the coffee industry faces a serious, both long and short-term threat: climate change. Coffee is a very sensitive plant that grows best between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. Higher temperatures lead to lower yields, but also to poor taste. Furthermore, heavy rains, severe droughts, and pests have already savaged harvests in some of the coffee heartlands. Worst-case scenario is that only a few coffee-producing countries will remain. The solution sits in the development of new coffee varieties. But a new variety needs a few years before it can bear fruit. Do we have that time? And if so, how do we transfer knowledge and innovation to the small farmers that may lack the funds to pay for it? Their livelihoods depend on coffee. Our coffee depends on them. Climate change is definitely transforming world food production. Some production areas may disappear, while others may crop up. Lower yields in some countries might lead to social or political tensions, which may scare foreign investors. And investments are essential for fully realizing a country's potential. Soybean is a high-protein crop that is very much in demand as a feed for livestock. The demand for soybeans has risen dramatically, especially in China, which has seen a yearly increase of soy imports of 13% in the last 15 years. The USA has always been the world's largest producer of soybeans, but the last few decades have seen an enormous growth of soybean production in Latin America, especially in Brazil. The low exchange rate of the Brazilian real, low production costs, and the availability of vast expanses of land have been the main drivers for ongoing production. The promising province of Mato Grosso, however, is situated more than 1,000 kilometers from the exporting harbors from where the soy is shipped to China and the EU. And here comes the bottleneck. Brazilian road infrastructure is very poor. Therefore, transportation makes up a large percentage of total costs, which seriously hampers the growth of Brazil's agricultural production. But who is going to invest to unlock the country's potential to feed the world? The environment, population growth, politics, capital. They all drive the economics of food, and they all come together in palm oil is the most widely consumed vegetable oil on the planet. It goes into an estimated 50% of all packaged products sold in supermarkets. That's why many farmers have switched to palm oil production and thus have been lifted out of poverty. Palm oil, however, is also tainted by poor working conditions and rapid and rampant deforestation, causing a decline in biodiversity and the loss of habitats of endangered species. Therefore, in 2004, the Round Table for Sustainable Palm Oil was founded, with the ambition to transform the sector and to make sustainable oil the norm. To qualify for certification, growers must comply to a set of environmental and social criteria. The pace of change, however, is not very fast. At present, nearly 20% of the world production has been certified. But who is going to speed things up? The producers? National governments? The big purchasers of palm oil, such as food manufacturers, personal care brands, and pharmaceuticals? Or is it the consumer who would start demanding more certified palm oil? When Columbus set foot in the Americas, the estimated world population was between 400 and 500 million people. The current world population of 7.6 billion is expected to reach 9.8 billion in 2050 and 11.2 billion in 2100. You do the math.